So now we're going to look at how we can look for things in an array, okay, or technically an array list. So I'm going to create an array list again, and again it will be an array list of strings. I'm going to, what should we do? Let's create an array list of names again. And we'll put some names in. Names dot add. Names dot add. Joe. Names dot add. Thaddeus. Names dot add. Mike. Okay. Let's add one more for good measure. Then. Okay. So now it's very easy to just check if something is contained within the array. We've done it before. We can say if names dot contains and then just pass in the thing we're looking for. That's relatively straightforward. But what if we wanted to find out, for example, do we have a name where the length is X number of characters, let's say 3 characters. That's not so straightforward because we need to check each item in turn, okay? So what we might do is we might create a loop. We might say for each string name in names, and then we can say, let's add a little comment so we know what we're doing. Do we have a name with exactly 3 letters? Okay. And we can say if name dot, oops, give me brackets, named, the right type of bracket, name dot length. So bear in mind that's the name of each individual thing, not the length of the array list, because that would be dot size, and that would be on names, not name. If that's equal to 3, then we could say, for example, there is a 3-letter name. Okay. Now at present there isn't, so if I run this, we'll get no output. But if I add a name Bob, we can demonstrate that we have met that criteria. Okay. Now, this is not necessarily the ultimate solution, because if we added another name, Jim, okay, all I care about at the moment, okay, is whether or not we have a 3-letter name. But if I run this code, okay, we get this output twice, which is not terribly helpful. So if I want to make sure that I only stop, or only find out if there is at least one, what I can do is I can just stop looking once we've found one. So we could do that. We could say break, and then we won't bother looking anymore. Okay, that's one option. Similarly, we might want to look for more than one thing at once, and we might want to store the variables outside the loop. So we might say instead Boolean has 3-letter name. That could be false. Boolean has 4-letter name. That could be false too. And then we could say, well, okay, we'll iterate through. If name is 3, we can set has 3-letter name to true. We can break, and then we might also say if. In fact, actually, we don't want to break at this point because we want to keep looking for a 4-letter one. So we could do that. We set it to true. Name dot length is equal to 4. Has 4-letter name equals true. Okay. If we were to break at either of these points, we'd stop as soon as we found either the 3 or the 4. We wouldn't necessarily find both if they both existed. Okay. And then what we could do at the end is, we could say if has 4-letter name, we could print out 4-letter name found. If has 3-letter name, has what? 3-letter name found. Okay. But let's just have a quick look at a few things that could go wrong. Okay, so let's just, in fact, let's leave that there and run our code. So we're good at the moment because we've got a Bob, which is a 3-letter, we've got a Jim, it's a 3-letter, we've got a Mike. The common mistakes we can make. One is putting an else clause in. Okay, so if we do that, let's do it here as well. So it's a common mistake, and the reason this is a common mistake, or reason what the problem with this is if we run it now, is it can say 3-letter names found, but it's not, it has 4-letter is false, and that's because the last thing we looked at was a 3-letter and not a 4-letter. So that's one common mistake, so we don't want to do that. Okay, it's already set at false from the start of the thing we're doing. And the other thing would be to break out the loop. If we break out the loop, then we're going to have a problem as well, because we'll stop as soon as we find the first thing. Now, if actually we wanted to find out as soon as we had just a 3 or 4-letter word, we could put a break in, and maybe we'd have a boolean has 3 or 4-letter name, so we can do that. Okay, so we've got to be careful where we break. We've got to be careful if we set values outside the loop. So the other thing we might want to do is to create a new array list where we just have criteria that meets a certain value. Okay, so we might decide, well, actually, we want to put all the 3 and 4-letter names into their own array. Okay, in fact, let's say we want to do all of the short names. So anybody with a name that's got 4 or less characters. So I'm going to delete my one here. I'm going to say everyone's got, and if the name is less than or equal to 4 in length, and I'm not going to put it in there. I'm going to just create an entirely new array list. So I'm going to say array list of string short names equals to new array list of string, and then I'm going to say, well, if that name is shorter, then I'm going to go to my short names, and I'm going to add to it this particular name. Okay, and at the end, I could write a loop that goes through each name in the short names array list, and I'm going to print them out. So if we run that, we're essentially doing a filter. We're not actually filtering the original list. We're creating a new copy list. It is possible to filter a list, but one thing you don't want to do is, with a standard for loop like this, go deleting items from the collection as you iterate through it. That can be problematic, and we'll look in a later session at something called an iterator that provides a safe way of removing items from a list as you work your way through that list, or whatever type of collection it is. But there we go, this is working, and it's now showing us our short names. So we can use it for, if we want to check a certain condition, whilst contain will let us check an exact match. If we want to look for something a bit more specific, we're likely to want to put some kind of query inside a loop, and then either set a value outside the loop or potentially copy information into, in this case, a new array.